Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Engaging and Empowering Donors and Partners Through Golf. For those of you who are returning Candid webinar participants, a warm welcome back. And to those of you here for the first time, I'm glad you're joining us today. My name is Yvonne Sims, Programs Manager for Candid based in Atlanta, and I'm joined by Savannah Cathers, also based in Atlanta. We'll be supporting today's webinar behind the scenes, as well as collecting questions you ask along the way and posing them at the end during the Q&A. For those of you joining us for the first time, we want to share with you that we joined forces with GuideStar to form a new single organization called Candid. Together, we have over 90 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. Every year, millions of nonprofits spend trillions of dollars around the world. Candid finds out where that money comes from, where it goes, and why it matters. We believe that an effective social sector is critical for a thriving society, and we believe in the importance of solutions for the sector, by the sector. With Candid, nonprofits, foundations, donors, and the public can all be on the same page. Through research, collaboration, and training, Candid connects people who want to change the world with the resources they need to do it. Let's go over a few items so you know how to take part in today's event. We've taken a screenshot of an example of the attendee interface. You should see something similar on your screen. For today's webinar, you're listening in using your computer's audio. Your lines are muted, but we invite you to engage with us through the questions feature shown as a speech bubble with a question mark. You can also download a PDF of today's presentation through the document icon on the control panel. And yes, we are recording today's presentation. You will receive a link to view the recording in the follow-up email that will be sent out in the next 2 business days. I would now like to turn over the controls to Katie Casillas from Golf Status. Katie Casillas is the Director of Marketing and Communications at golfstatus.org, where she lives her passion for working at the intersection of business and philanthropy. Her focus is on helping nonprofits use technology to harness the power of golf to advance their fundraising goals, forge and strengthen corporate partnerships, and expand their donor base. She holds a bachelor's in English, rhetoric, and composition from the University of Nebraska and an MBA from Nebraska Wesleyan University. She lives in Lincoln, Nebraska with her husband and daughter. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Katie.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Really appreciate the welcome, and thank you so much to Candid for having us today on this webinar. I will kind of give us an overview of what we'll be talking about today, and then we'll kind of jump into a panel discussion with some folks who will be joining us from Children's Miracle Network hospitals to talk about golf fundraising and how to engage and empower donors and partners using golf. So we're going to start with a broad look at the golf fundraising landscape and really get into a discussion, especially about what has happened over the last sort of year and a half, and how golf has become a more critical fundraising mechanism probably than ever before. So with that, we'll kind of lay some groundwork for our panel discussion, and then we'll actually jump into some Q&A with our panelists who we'll be introducing. And then we'll kind of talk about some resources and next steps that are available to nonprofits, large and small, who are looking for ways to get involved in golf fundraising or activate their networks to golf fundraise on their behalf. So without further ado, I will turn it over to my colleague, Logan Foote, who is our Education and Development Manager at Golf Status. And he's going to talk a little bit about the golf fundraising landscape currently.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, like Katie said, my name is Logan Foote. I'm the Education and Development Manager at Golf Status. And so I am going to kind of just lay the foundation, kind of take just a broad look at golf fundraising in general. So to start, I'm kind of going to talk about the events that we saw last year and kind of what that meant for golf. So the events of last year, going through the COVID pandemic in 2020, really led to this perfect storm for golf. So obviously throughout the year last year, a lot of fundraising events had to be canceled. Some were moved to a more of a virtual format, but golf tournaments remained one of the few activities nonprofits could still pursue for fundraising. So, obviously golf is an outdoor sport that easily allows participants to socially distance, but it also allowed people to still actually attend an event in person. A lot of us experienced that virtual fatigue where every event we were attending was through a screen. Well, this was exactly the opposite with golf. You could still actually go physically in person, be outside, be around some other people in a distanced manner. So it was really helped you kind of get out of that virtual fatigue we were all experiencing. But the golf industry as a whole also did a really great job committing to a safe return to play through their Back to Golf initiative, which was just an initiative that included some social distancing guidelines that courses and golfers could follow, as well as some strategies and resources courses used to keep their golfers safe. So all of this really led a lot of nonprofits to turn a lot of their fundraising efforts towards golf. If they had a golf event, maybe they looked at revamping it, or if they'd never even done golf, they considered it to use as a key part of their fundraising portfolio. So through some simple modifications as well as the use of technology, nonprofits were able to ensure their golf event was as safe as possible and was still able to go off. So we saw a lot of events go to touch-free, moving things online, especially things like online registration, eliminating those paper form registrations, paying via check and cash, as well as utilizing live scoring technology, which allowed participants to score the event right from their mobile device, eliminating the paper scorecards. We still saw obviously a lot of traditional events go off where everyone gathered in person. They used some modifications to accommodate those as well. One of the common ones we saw was most of these events are typically what they call a shotgun start, where every team is starting and finishing at exactly the same time. A lot of these events move to a tee time start where every team is starting and finishing at a different time. And then they also eliminated any gathering after the event, such as any sort of dinner or awards banquet or auction, to eliminate that large gathering of people. And then kind of out of COVID was born the kind of the virtual and or hybrid golf fundraising formats. So a virtual format is essentially where everyone is still going out and playing golf, but it's not all at the same time, and in some instances wasn't even all at the same golf course. And then the hybrid format was kind of encapsulated both of those formats. You had your in-person day where everyone was playing on the same day, as well as included those virtual options for those who either couldn't or didn't want to attend the big in-person day, but they still have those virtual options to play maybe on a different day leading up to that big in-person event day. So kind of taking a step back and taking a 10,000 foot view of golf fundraising, really golf events right now are extremely really more important than ever. We're kind of in a situation now where we're obviously hopeful for a return to normalcy, but the benefits of a golf fundraiser reach far further than just simply a COVID friendly event. Golf events are really a great solid opportunity to raise funds for your organization, largely in part to the type of person that they attract. So when it comes to the golfer donor, statistically speaking, these folks are they have an average net worth of about $750 million. 1 in 3 are top level managers or decision makers at their companies or places of work. 90% of Fortune 500 CEOs are golfers. 83% own mutual funds or stocks, and nearly 20% of them own 2 or more homes. So these stats really speak to these folks being high capacity donors, but also folks who are connected to and are part of organizations that can serve as really great sponsors for the event. And that is perhaps really the biggest reason the golf outing has the potential to be so successful, because of the types of folks that it attracts. So therefore, we're really seeing a lot of organizations, like I said, readopting or revamping their golf event to really be a key part of their fundraising portfolio going forward.
Thank you so much. So with that, what we'd love to do is talk about a specific example of an organization that's really doing that really well. So Children's Miracle Network Hospitals is particularly adept at leveraging golf fundraising, and they're doing it sort of across the board. So I want to introduce some of our panelists. We have Ben Parker, Chad Phillips, and Kyton Sweat from the Children's Miracle Network Hospitals team. So hi guys, I'll let you kind of go around and introduce yourself and you know, talk about who you are and what you do at Children's Miracle Network Hospitals.
Thanks, Katie. I guess I'll go first. Ben Parker, Senior Director of Play Yellow. It's a program inside of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals that focuses on golf fundraising. We're very lucky to have Jack and Barbara Nicholas be a part of this effort and be our spokespeople on the national front. I've been with the organization since 2007. It's been an honor to work on several projects, including a stint on the PGA Tour and a lot of corporate fundraising. Probably the highlight is working on the Ace Shootout. It was a golf television show with celebrities. Raises about $2.2 million and is on Golf Channel every year. But I get to focus on Play Yellow, which is what I love. I love working on golf fundraising and bringing the golf world to children's hospitals.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad Phillips. I'm Vice President of Programs at Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. I really kind of focus on the programmatic elements that we bring to our partners, both corporate partners, hospitals, and Play Yellow being one of my primary focus, working closely with Ben and Kyton. I've been with Children's Miracle Network for a little over 2 years, and prior to that was with one of our hospitals in Orlando, Florida, focused on golf fundraising there as well. So I've been doing this for a number of years, and especially with the last year in the pandemic, it's been really interesting just to see kind of where the landscape has shifted on this, and looking forward to talking to you all about this more today.
And my name is Kyton Sweat. I'm a Senior Manager of Ideation at CMN, and my role is really looking at all things new, trying to look at what trends are happening out there through research and analysis of our current and existing programs. So working closely with Play Yellow, working closely with our corporate partners who host these tournaments and host these events, and really trying to deliver resources, tools, platforms like Golf Status to those users for heightened experiences and just an overall better donor experience as well. So excited to talk through all of these fun golf things as well.
Logan, do you want to give a full intro of kind of your background?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, education and development manager. I've been with Golf Status about 3.5 years now, going on 4 years. At Golf Status, we work with golf courses as well as individual golfers through our app, but as well as nonprofit events. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything. Obviously, right now I am mostly focused on supporting our staff, working directly with nonprofit orgs. And really excited to be here and discuss with one of our really awesome partners in Children's Miracle Network and how they are utilizing our platform to support all of their events and improve their fundraising efforts.
Awesome, thank you guys so much. So maybe let's kind of start by just laying some groundwork with regard to the Play Yellow program and Children's Miracle Network Hospitals in general. So Ben, you kind of started to touch on Play Yellow and exactly how it works and what it is, but can you talk about Play Yellow, Children's Miracle Network Hospitals, and how y'all are using golf to fundraise?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a backstory, obviously, with Jack and Barbara Nicholas. Barbara's pastor asked Barbara if Jack could reach out to his son Craig, who was suffering from Ewing sarcoma and in the hospital, and Jack said of course. And so they would talk on the phone, and they decided after one particular tournament, Jack won the event, and he called Craig in the hospital, and Craig said, "Hey, I knew you're going to win today, And Jack said, well, why is that? And he said, well, you had on your lucky yellow shirt and I had on my lucky yellow shirt. And Jack was like, okay, here's the thing. And he started to wear yellow regularly from that point, just as a way to wave to a kid in the hospital that was struggling through a serious disease. And Craig unfortunately passed away. And at the 86 Masters, time marches on, right? And Jack's career was fading. But that Sunday in 1986, he decided to wear yellow. It was, and it just was fate. He wore the yellow and won the tournament, and really is like the highlight of his career. And Phil Mickelson just won on Sunday, and a lot of people are comparing that win to Jack's win in '86, sort of this landmark event. But that story had really never been told. And Jack and Barbara now focus entirely all their efforts around fundraising, not only for their hospital, but are part of the Children's Miracle Network. And that's 170 hospitals in North America that our organization supports through many avenues, not just golf fundraising. We have corporate campaigns. If you ever see the balloon icon that's on this photo on the question, you'll see it in stores where people are raising money, mostly $1 at a time. But what's been great is that our organization has always had golf as a fundraising mechanism. And I think what's cool now is that we've got a brand, we've got a spokesperson, spokespeople, and you've got a team that's now starting to focus entirely around golf and how can we amplify our efforts, share that message of how golf is supporting children's healthcare on a large scale, but maybe not getting the recognition that they need, and then giving golfers something that they can tie themselves to and say, hey, look, this isn't just playtime, like I'm actually making an impact in my community. So that's about as brief as I can tell that story.
Love it. So one of the really cool things about Play Yellow is sort of it's, at the highest of levels in golf and getting folks like Jack and Barb involved, but then also sort of grassroots. Can you talk about maybe how it's a little bit more multi-layered and sort of different folks are involved? Can you expand on that just a bit?
I certainly can. So what we have every level, as you can imagine. So a hospital, like let's pick a market like Los Angeles. So Los Angeles is a big market. The hospital may only have one tournament that they put on, but our partners in that market, like Costco or Ace Hardware or Marriott, they may be doing golf fundraising as well. And then you have individuals who take up the cause and maybe have a personal connection through a child of their own or through a neighbor, and they want to create a fundraiser. So you might see, events that are $8,000. You might see events that are $80,000. You might see events that are $800,000, and then get into like 7 figures. So we're really trying to support every single level of how golf is being leveraged to make an impact in those communities.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about golf and you kind of talked about where this came from and how kind of all of this originated. One thing that I think is important to discuss is golf as compared to other types of fundraising events. So can you guys talk a little bit about what is specifically unique about golf and why it sort of contributes to a successful fundraiser?
Yeah, Katie, I can jump in here on that. I think one thing that's unique about golf is just, I think we often get limited in thinking, well, we can host 1 or 2 tournaments a year and there's kind of this ceiling to it. There's really is a lot of opportunity in golf. I mean, if you just look at the statistics, golf raises, around $4 billion every year for charitable initiatives. And that's larger than all the other major sports combined. And I think what people often miss is we tend to just think about it as that golf tournament. And I think the pandemic's even shown this even a little bit more, that there are opportunities outside of what we traditionally think about golf, but it takes some time to really kind of understand that landscape. I think you've really got to understand the industry, how it works, how partners work within it. And it's an interesting industry because it's huge, but it's also very close knit, and it's a tight community that people are often working hand in hand together. And so I think just that alone really makes it unique, because there's always going to be that core element, and I think we're going to touch on this a bit more around what golf fundraising is and what we kind of look at it is on the surface. But I think there's so much more beneath the surface that's still untapped potential for organizations out there who really are looking to expand their golf fundraising efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, and it kind of goes back, and I know we'll get a little bit further into this, but it goes back to what Ben was saying about getting folks involved at different levels. Logan, maybe you're a good person to speak on this, just kind of how folks can kind of plug in, you know, as supporters of a golf event, or maybe they want to run their own golf event, or maybe their church group wants to get together, or maybe it's a larger corporate entity. Maybe that's something you can expand on a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the really cool things about specifically how Children's Miracle Network is set up through their Play Yellow campaign. It can be anyone at any of those levels can really, you know, plug in, like you said, and get involved with an event or put on an event. And it is really anyone can plan a golf event. You don't have to know golf really, really well. I've actually been in touch with many tournament organizers throughout my time here who put on these really big, successful golf fundraisers, but you know, they don't have really any firsthand knowledge about the sport itself. So it's really easy, especially with the right technology, the right tools, to plug in whatever level that may be. If you are just someone who wants to get out and and support and make an impact, just by participating in an event, or if you want to gather a small group of people, hold an event, or if you're at that kind of chapter national level and want to put on a very large event, you can very easily do that.
So given that CMN hospitals and their foundations are kind of integrally connected to their communities, one thing that makes golf tournaments especially unique is that they're also community events where folks are actually coming together virtually or literally, or sometimes in a hybrid format, as we learned this last year. But folks are literally coming together, and they can turn into events that really rally and garner support from local individuals and businesses, and then regionally, and of course at the national level. So can you guys talk a little bit about the advantages that come from that setup, and how golf events can help hospitals and their related foundations connect with the communities that they're actually serving?
Yeah, Katie, it's something that I think gets often overlooked. Is I think we get so focused on the event itself and all the logistics that have to happen, and sometimes we miss that opportunity to see how these can connect us to our communities as a whole. And so that's been a big part of what the journey we've been on, is really how are we connecting to the donors who are participating in these events? How are we helping our hospitals not just come participate in an event, they maybe hear a little bit about the hospital and the impact that it's having in that community, and then they kind of go away and maybe forget about it. But that really needs to be the starting place. And I think golf events are a really good place to begin that journey, because it's a really great way of engaging them. They're obviously coming out and participating in something that they're passionate about, that they enjoy doing. But when you really focus on that cause connection through those events and really find ways, and to Logan's point, technology plays such an important role in this, and really just trying to capture that data around those donors, and really thinking not just about that event, but what does that entire journey look like for that donor? If they're entering the funnel through a golf event, what are the next steps? What are the actions you're hoping that they take beyond that? And how really can you truly build a community that maybe started at a golf event, but really continued on beyond that?
Yeah, absolutely. Chitin, I'm coming for you. I want to talk a little bit about ideation and ideas and some of these bigger concepts, and actually putting them into action, which I know is kind of where your team comes in on the very front end. tell us about, well, first of all, just tell us about ideation at Children's Miracle Network. What is the ideation team, and how does that team approach implementing new ideas?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So ideation has evolved over the last few years. I've been here for the last 8, I guess. It started as an innovation team really tasked with finding what are those next big programs, what are those next big, initiatives that Children's Miracle Network needs to focus on and bring to our hospitals, our partners, our donors. And Play Yellow came out of that in a way from our chief, the chief that was over innovation at the time. And, what ideation has evolved into from where innovation came from, which is it's really looking at what our current things and how we can expand our current offerings and make sure that we're really still innovating within those. I think we've got a really great portfolio of different opportunities to fundraise and different programs to fundraise, and now we need to sort of build upon those, and there's always room for innovation, and so ideation really leads and stewards that for the entire organization. And we do that through really getting connected with Ben and Chad and other program owners and our corporate partners in our hospitals and talking with them and researching and really understanding where there are still pain points, where there's still opportunities for growth. And that's where our team comes in. We analyze those. We look at the marketplace and try to figure out, okay, this is what's happening. COVID's here. Our events are, closing down. Our golf tournaments are getting canceled or pushed back. We obviously need to figure something out, right? And so we work with, Ben and Chad to really understand what do golfers want and what do these tournament organizers need to be able to pull off events in last year and even into this year. And that's where we did our work, did our homework, and found Golf Status. And that's one example of many of how our team at CMN really works in bringing these new ideas all the way through.
Yeah, so what does that look like? I mean, innovation and ideation is the core of kind of what you do, and then a pandemic hits and everything shifts and pauses and pivots. And I mean, what does that look like? Why is innovation important in both times of crisis, but also just on an everyday level?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think the great thing at Children's is, leadership's always placed such a huge emphasis on innovation, not only for executive level, but for all levels. I think that's a really cool thing that, we've helped build here is an open innovation sort of mentality of anyone can bring a cool idea to life. They just have to do a little bit of research, understand where that need's coming from, and be able to present that idea in a way that really has some legs and needs some building, of course. But I think that's really been the cool thing here at Children's is that we want to find those next things. We need to find those next things, because if we don't, really the hospitals and the kids that they serve, they need the funds, and so I think it's imperative that we're always finding new and innovative ways to reach donors, create awesome partnership opportunities with corporate partners and with golf tournaments and all sorts of events. And so I think we really have our mission driving us always to change kids' health, to change the future. We need to have ideas to change the future, and so we're always looking forward and really trying to stay ahead of the curve in a way with whatever we're looking at on the ideation and innovation teams. And so That's really helped us, through not only the pandemic last year, but I think it'll help us in years to come is a good stress test of, okay, we need to innovate quickly, but we were able to do that, and I think we can do it in non-pandemic times as well. So.
Yeah, I think one of the really particularly neat things about the way that CMN approaches innovation is how quickly you're able to move. And I don't know if that's because of the innovation team and just the structure and how you have that set up, but of course, we've worked with a lot of organizations, large and small, nationwide, and you guys are moving quick. You guys are, you're very, of course, pragmatic and intentional, but very fast moving on initiatives, and I think that's really impressive. So
thanks. I think it's important to have great business partners from the program side, like Ben and Chad, to really help catalyze and quickly adapt, to whatever, me and my team are bringing to them. And we're really working closely together throughout that process as well, that I know we'll talk a little bit about. And so, yeah, it's a culture thing, and I think our team helps in that. But I think we've got a little perfect storm in a way. So,
Katie, just real quick, a quick story of where innovation really did pay off for us. As with probably everyone when the pandemic first started, we were just grasping at straws and a little bit in a panic, and how do we pivot and shift to, a virtual world? And we thought we had a great solution on the golf side. It was an all virtual product that we just felt like this is going to be a home run. Completely fell flat. And so we quickly kind of started working with our innovation team to say, why is this not working? And so Chitin was just fantastic at digging in, and really, the insight that came out of it was golfers want to golf. They don't want to do it on a computer screen. They don't want to. And so we had to really work quickly to start building solutions around that, and what led us actually to working with you guys. And so it's just, sometimes I think it's important, even when you have a situation like we were dealt with last year, take a little bit of time to really do your homework and make sure you're heading down the right path. And that's what really our ideation team allows us to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually the next question I was going to jump into, is kind of what happened when COVID hit and how that impacted fundraising across Children's Miracle Network hospitals in general, but then also kind of how you pivoted and what realizations you came to and what that looked like.
Yeah,
well, honestly, oh, sorry, Chad.
Take that. Go ahead.
I mean, honestly, it's been a wild ride, because I think everybody has been trying to figure out not only the pandemic, but how do you keep, your business alive and thriving. We have one program that is entirely based on college campuses. So you can only imagine how challenging it was to keep those events, that inspiration, that motivation to fundraise for your local hospital alive. And we on the golf side, we were freaking out because we raised about $29 million through golf. And a lot of our partners right up front were saying, well, we're just gonna have to pause. And then we had some incredible stories too, like Costco in Seattle. They didn't even do their event. They just told their partners, like, hey, we're really sorry. Like, we can't gather, we can't do this. It's too much restriction. We can't travel. And they held kind of like their gala is what they replaced it with. They did their gala, and they were still able to raise a significant amount of dollars. But we all know, like, in the background, you've created this machine, this golf fundraising machine, and you don't want to lose momentum. And so that was immediately when we went to Chitin's team and said, look, we've got to figure out some sort of solution for not only these corporate partners, but also addressing what Chad talked about. We knew that the golfers wanted to golf. So how can we do it? How can we make this happen? And that was our big, like, blazing question above it all. How can we keep golf fundraising alive? Not in just 2019, but in 2020 as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think just to add to that too, on the silver lining of it is it forced us out of our comfort zone and what we kind of knew, and really allowed us some space to begin really innovating and looking at new ideas. And I think for the future, it's going to be a really good thing for us, that the setbacks that we saw last year really drove new ideas and things that we had never thought about before. And quite honestly, we would have been just so busy in the midst of what a normal year might look like that we probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to really dig into those ideas. So I think there's some silver lining there as well, that it kind of gave us some space to really think about it, look at things from different angles, and find solutions that we may have not even been looking for prior to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said about what Kyton said, is that golfers wanted to golf. And it's interesting, when the pandemic hit, everything kind of froze up for a while, and then golf courses started to reopen rather quickly. And they didn't just reopen, they were booked solid. So you know, there was a huge return to play. And Logan, I don't know if maybe you want to talk a little bit about the industry and how that happened and how folks returned. Uh-oh. I might have lost Logan for a second.
No, you're good.
Oh, are you there? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. But no, to your point, there was this really just big renewed interest in golf, not only from people who already were golfers, but you know, people who are just, I'm sick of being behind a screen. To Chad's point, people wanted to go out and golf, or just there's people probably that just wanted to go do something. So golf was something that a lot of people just naturally gravitated to. So when it comes to, you know, nonprofit organizations, something we saw across all of the nonprofits that we work with was those who had done a golf event before, maybe looking at it and trying to revamp it and adapt it for COVID. And then a lot of nonprofits who were like, I need to raise funds. How do I do that? Well, it looks like I can still hold a golf tournament. Let's get into this and see what we need to do to get this going, because it's one of my few options I have to generate any sort of income for my organization. So, but what we're now seeing going forward is organizations are really sticking with those golf events going forward as a kind of a key part of their fundraising plans throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I want to talk about, kind of in that same vein, is, and what I think is really great about Play Yellow, is its sort of commitment to being as inclusive as possible and really engaging with and involving anyone. And whether that means, you know, coming out to an event with your yellow shirt on, or donating to an event that you know is happening, or just, there's tons of ways to support this initiative, from the highest of levels to just down to any passionate individual. Can you guys talk a little bit about how Play Yellow is really engaging supporters across the gamut and what that looks like?
Yeah, it really kind of goes back to some of our roots with obviously Jack and Barbara Nicholas and the PGA Tour and kind of where we started. But what was great is from day one, you know, Jack's got his companies that he has endorsement deals with, and they could have very easily said, hey, you've got to work with these companies and these companies only, but they were the ones to say, we want Play Yellow to be for everyone in the golf ecosystem. And so that really, I think from day one for us, we just said, we want this to be a platform that is inclusive of everyone. And how do we really, you know, look at every opportunity? We don't want this to be a space where, you know, a partner wants to come in and just try to get exclusivity on it and only they get to play that. But how can we really rally partners in the golf world around this cause of children's health, and where they may be competitors in the retail space, for this cause, they're joining hands and working together to improve, you know, the health of children in the communities that we serve. So that's been really important to us with Play Yellow, is that it really is a platform that everyone can come and engage with. And I think what it's done is it's helped us maybe see some possibilities that if we had tried to just put a lot of parameters on it, we may not have discovered. From when we launched this 2 years ago to where we are today, there are things that we are now exploring and working on that we had not even thought of back then. And it's because of really just keeping that open mind about this program. And it goes back to what I said earlier, is just, you can kind of pigeonhole what golf fundraising is into this box, and there's really a lot of opportunities out there if you're just willing to take the time to explore and look for maybe some of those things that aren't right there on the surface.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing along those lines is that there's so many different types of folks planning these events. So Ben, I know you talked earlier about, the hospitals within the local communities planning their events, and sometimes there's a foundation. Who else who else is putting these events on, and in what other capacities are you guys engaging folks to run these events on your behalf or with CMNH as a beneficiary?
Well, we have a play yellow signal that shoots up in the sky and we run. No, it's pretty. I've got a great story for you. So Rick, I probably can't share his last name just yet, but Rick is an individual. He's retired Microsoft exec. He grew up in Columbus and played golf in sort of Jack's shadow. He's not as old as Jack, but he's a little bit younger, but knew all. Anyway, he's all about Jack. And he was watching the broadcast last year and saw Play Yellow, and he said, "Hey, I can do this. Like, I think I can do this. I've got a home club. I can put on a golf event and I can become part of Play Yellow," not even realizing, what sort of touch points he might have with the program. But he gave me a call, and immediately we were able to talk about strategies and ideas of how he could leverage his network and his home club to create a significant fundraiser. Now, when I say significant, I'm just going to use 6 figures as a number, because I think that that's a big milestone for a lot of golf fundraising. Like, if you start out small, that's awesome, because first year is the hardest one. You get into that second year and you can start to feel momentum and where your sponsorship dollars are going to come from. But what's great about Rick's story is that this is one person, and he uses his network to build something. And then we have a support mechanism, and thankfully Golf Status, to quickly help him organize his event. If he had to build a website on his own,
right,
okay, like for some people that's easy, but for most of us it's like, well, building a website's a big deal, and then having a website that has the level of functionality that you need it to have in order to make it easy for a first-time organizer. Because the one thing we consistently hear is, I kind of got into it not really realizing how big of a deal it is to plan a golf event. And what's great about the technology and tools that we're embracing with Golf Status is that that's getting you well past the first milestone. That first year is the hard one, but really it kind of puts you on year 2 in terms of organization, communication, and getting that event and helping you focus on what really matters. So I got lost a little bit in the answer, but what I love is individuals like Rick can build something significant and create an impact. And his group of golfers, they're gonna remember this event for a long time, and it's gonna be on their calendars. They're not just gonna drop that invitation on the floor because they got a stack of invites to participate in a golf event. They're gonna do this one because it supports the local hospital. It has this cool vibe to it. And then it's tied to a big national platform with Jack and Barbara Nicholas. But it's the individual that really makes the difference. So we're not focused on the individual, but we kind of are, because the golf donor is such an interesting demographic to look at closely. They are they're not misrepresented, but they're kind of like what Chad was talking about earlier, where they're not really looked at. They're kind of looked as a participant of a bigger event. When you start to drill down into who these people are, why they like to golf, why they participate, what's driving them to be there in the first place, then you really have this amazing opportunity to build something out of those 72, 100, to 144 players that are at your event.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said about the first year is sometimes the hardest, but once you get over that hurdle, it's, it can really, really compound quickly. And a lot of the tournaments that we work with have run for 10, 20, sometimes 30 years. And they have sort of a cohort of folks who come back every year and, tap new people to join their team. So it can really compound if you can make it easy or if you can remove those barriers to entry. I also, and I think Logan switched to the next question about activating passionate supporters. I think one of the other things that golf has going for it is that most of the time you're talking about a scramble. So people have to field a team in order to play. So they kind of have to ask people to join them. And so bringing those people kind of into your donor network and figuring out who they're asking to join and then re-engaging with them, I think can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, when we
Logan,
did, sorry, Katie.
No, go
just
ahead.
a quick point. One of the things that we learned early on in our fundraising was that golfers were a group of individuals that a lot of our marketing and fundraising wasn't reaching them. I would go to a golf tournament and ask the golfers, like, and I'd show them the balloon on my shirt. I'd say, hey, do you recognize this balloon? And they'd say, oh yeah, at Costco, I gave money at Costco. And then I'd start listing off all the other opportunities that they could participate in our fundraising, you know, through radiothons, through dance marathons if they were college students, anything. And generally the answer was no. And so I saw this, you know, as a team of people looking at this closely, we saw an opportunity to, you know, this is a group that we're not neglecting, but our marketing efforts aren't reaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a perfect storm of bringing people that have the ability to donate and also at some level have transformational gift potential. If you're willing to cultivate this as a group and not just, hey, we're putting on a party with a purpose and it's meeting this sponsor's needs, and you know, those are all objectives, but if you start looking at the larger picture, it's a fascinating group to start leveraging and create incredible philanthropy going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Logan, anything to add there? I think it's interesting when we're, you know, on our end, when we're working with organizations like yours who have a lot of third party, either individuals or entities, our goal is to make it easy for them to come in and participate in all of the great programming that you have and the support you have on the Play Yellow side, and just launch and run their event and leverage, and, you know, in the case of Rick, leverage his network or leverage whatever it is that they can leverage in order to participate. So I think that golf is unique in that way, in the sense that if you're passionate about golf, you can leverage that and we can fill in the gaps. And if you're passionate, you know, maybe you're not so passionate about golf, but you're very passionate about the cause, or you're really involved in your community, or you have a sponsor network, we can sort of plug in the gaps, and our two organizations are working together in a way to do that. So I think that's a particularly unique thing about golf and golf fundraising. Logan, I don't know if you had anything to add there with regard to technology and activating, you know, supporters or passionate individuals.
Yeah, with our technology specifically, what I liked about kind of Ben's point is you have these individuals who are really just interested in the golf events, and that's what they love to do and they're passionate about. So with our technology, and something we've done with Children's Miracle Network, is give them a place where all of these different golf events can live. So it's all centralized, and it's easy for these people to find these events or even multiple events, and they can go in, identify the ones they want to participate in, and very easily sign up and get registered for it. So the right technology makes it not only easy to, you know, launch and, like Katie said, fill in those gaps depending on you know, where those gaps are for you, if they're in the golf side or the, you know, the sponsor side, whatever it may be, but also makes it really easy to promote and target your marketing to those golfers that will support your event and your cause.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about today is donor data, and this is certainly, you know, a big topic in nonprofits in general. But I think with regard to the golf event, a lot of times there's folks participating in these events or supporting them, and organizations don't know anything about those people, don't know who they are, can't thank them even. So I want to talk a little bit about donor data and how that pertains to the golf event, and maybe just start by talking about why it's so important to collect that information.
Yeah, I can take this one. So for us, I think we are we are thrilled with the opportunity to collect information in golfer data and in really just overall golf tournament data, because we're such a large organization that has so many of these third-party events going on. We, previously, I think we maybe had a base level understanding of who these golfers are, or who these participants are, or even some of the events. What are the events even going on? And now with a lot of our tournaments using golf status to be able to have as our one-stop shop essentially for all things golf tournaments, we now get a better understanding of all the different tournaments going on, all the different donors that are coming in. And I think we've talked a little bit about who these donors or who these golfers are and what kind of donors they can be, which are extremely valuable donors that could in some cases create their own tournaments, but in some cases become large donors or major gifts. And so I think when we looked at some of the I don't even know if we went into golf status and finding this as a solution for that as a main sort of great thing that came out of it. I think that was something that was like, oh yeah, we can absolutely do this. And now we're starting to really think through how can we use all of this data and information to be able to coach up some of these events and provide best practices to all events and to the industry, I think, as well, and say, here's, and work with you at Golf Status to be able to develop some of those additional tools and resources that can help these tournaments and raise more money through heightened donor experience and golfer experience, and heightened understanding of how to run a tournament and be able to run it in a really efficient way, but also in a highly advantageously for revenue way. So I think that collecting this donor data is in just the overall data that we're going to be getting. I'm really excited, and I think a lot of people in our organization, especially on our data and strategy side, are excited to dig into that and start to build out what's next, build out that roadmap, and build out those upcoming opportunities. And that goes back to some of the stuff that I work on the ideation team, which is all of that new and innovative solutions that hopefully help all of us, raise more money for the causes we're working for.
The one thing, Kay, I'll just add to that, and this is kind of a hot topic, obviously, it's just around consumer data, and a lot of trust has been broken there by other brands and how that data has been used. And so consumers often, they just want to opt out because they're just afraid of how that's going to be used. And so I think it's just really important to think about that as your organization. If you really are looking to collect data and utilize that, you've got to really think through that and be transparent with the consumers about what you're asking for of them by providing their data, and what is that data going to be used for, and then be a good steward of that. Don't break that trust with them, because as we talked about earlier in building that community, this is a starting place. And so you want to have that information to kind of help take them on that journey and give them a little taste of what that journey looks like, what that action step might be, why they're opting in and providing their data, and what they can expect from you in utilizing that data and stuff. So I think those are just things that sometimes get often overlooked. I think we just look at it as, well, we've got the box, we're being compliant, that they can opt out and stuff like that, but it can be a very powerful tool. So you've just got to take that time to really think through how you're going to collect it and how you're going to use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was something for us that we really, when we did realize how much data we were going to be getting, by utilizing this, that was something we had to really think through and work through with our partners, with our hospitals, and really provide those opportunities to be intentional about how we're going to be using the data. And so I think, yeah, Chad, you hit on a really good point, that as you're looking to use Golf Status, or looking to start these tournaments, really being intentional with your data design and your collection and use is something that is something that might fall through the cracks sometimes, but it should be intentional, because I think if you are intentional with it, that's where you get to do the cool, fun stuff that I kind of talked about, which is be able to explore and really understand, how we can best utilize this in a big way, not necessarily in an individual way, but in a sort of trends way across a bunch of different tournaments. What can work really well.
Yeah, I think I like what you said about being a good steward of the data, and it's something that we are constantly focused on. And of course, everyone on, in this panel, we had a lot of calls, right, about ensuring that not just that we're compliant, but also that we're responsible and respectful, and align with good data stewardship and what that actually means. So yeah, I like what you said there. And to your point, Chitin, when you have that data, then you can use it in different ways. So I want to kind of pivot and talk about how you guys early on even have used some of that data, specifically with regard to sponsor support, just by bringing all of these tournaments together. It goes without saying that sponsors are an integral piece of any fundraising event, but certainly of a golf event. So how have you guys been able to leverage sponsor support both individually and then also across events, as you're kind of wrapping your arms around the scope of these third-party fundraisers and what that looks like?
I think probably one of the biggest things, and we're still very much on this journey, and Chitin, I think, mentioned this earlier, is just there were so many things happening out there across our network that we were not even aware of, because they kind of get buried into other fundraising activities. And so we did an audit 2 years ago that really brought a lot of this to light for us. And so we've really been working on, I kind of use the analogy of a puzzle, that there's all these pieces out there, and we're working on putting together this larger picture of what Play Yellow is and its impact that it has. And we begin to see, as we work with partners and talking about sponsorships and stuff, and I think you see this a lot in golf fundraising in general. It's very kind of fragmented, disconnected. You don't have a lot of things. They kind of sit out on an island. As we're now starting to pull some of these things together, we're beginning to kind of paint this bigger picture of what is happening in the golf space in support of children's hospitals through our network of hospitals. And that's a story we can go out and tell to the partners that we work with on Play Yellow. And it helps them, because right now they're fielding all of these individual requests from all of these different charities. And so hopefully by us bringing that together and really being able to talk about that bigger picture, they see something bigger that they can engage with, that they will probably support at a deeper level, and that we're already seeing that. So that's really one of the ways that we've tried to leverage this, is just going out there, curating all the pieces that already exist, helping those pieces grow, and hopefully the aggregate of it all is a much bigger opportunity for everybody to be involved with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not uncommon on our end, when we're working with an organization that has a lot of third-party run events, it's not uncommon, and you guys can maybe speak to this, to just get a check in the mail, hey, we ran X fundraiser and here's a check. And you're like, well, okay, well, we'd love to know more. We'd love more information. We'd love to support you at a broader level. So having that data, knowing who's running events, when they're happening, what course, who's supporting them, who's playing in them, who's contributing sponsor dollars, can be especially valuable. Sorry.
Katie, one more thing I'll just add to that just kind of, example I'll give is, we have Marriott Vacations Worldwide is a great partner of ours that supported us for a number of years. And as we kind of put this together, they actually stepped in and became our technology sponsor for our events. And so had all these events been on their own and trying to use Golf Status on their own, that would have never happened. But by coming together as kind of more as one entity, Marriott Vacations Worldwide really saw that as an opportunity to support a lot of local events. And so I think it just really showed the power of trying to come together as one, as much as you can, really, I think, begins to open up doors that probably would have never been opened had you not gone that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's incredible when a partnership, and of course y'all have been partnered with Marriott for a number of years, I know, and it's great for them to look at this opportunity, all of these golf events, and how can we get behind this effort, especially at a time when other fundraisers are really difficult to hold. So yeah, it's a great story. That leads kind of into my next question, which is about the technology in general. And I think we've kind of talked around this over the course of this panel discussion, just technology and what it's been able to do for you all. Any last thoughts or any additional thoughts on the impact that technology has had on golf fundraisers and golf fundraising in general?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. It's fascinating to see a golf tournament that has sort of survived without the technology. It's not that they can't do it, but you immediately realize that they are spending the majority of their time on the planning and execution of all that information. It's more about the communicating. It's more about last minute party planning that goes on at a golf tournament, and they're not really doing what they should be doing, which is having those touch points with their golfers, with their sponsors, with the golf course. They're spending more time on the communication, organizing side. So I just feel like technology in terms of the golf world is really just sort of on the precipice. I mean, you can't watch a golf tournament now without seeing some sort of data set on the screen, whether it's, how the ball's being hit and measured. But as you think about organizing a golf tournament, if you've got a fundraiser going on and you've got 144 golfers out on the golf course, wouldn't it be awesome to message them, or for them to have some sort of connectivity, or for them to realize that we haven't met our goal yet, and in the old days, all of that happens after the golf. That all happens, maybe there's like a little, guy on the PA system at the golf course, and they're like, all right, golfers, and then you get to the end of the event, and if somebody's had a bad day, they're slamming the trunk and they're out of there. Oh, sorry, dudes, I can't hang around for lunch. Well, that's your cause connection touch point, and you just lost it with those individuals that are, disappointed that maybe they didn't get what they wanted out of the day. So I feel like if you take a step back and look at the opportunity of being able to leverage this technology to have everybody on one platform, including your golf course, your vendors, your sponsors, everybody knows what the plan is. Now you can get to the heart of the matter. And I've been to golf events where I got to the end of the golf tournament and then I learned about the cause. I didn't even know why I was there, or I didn't even know what the goal was. Like, were we trying to raise money today, or, what was happening? And so I feel like these new tools that aren't maybe necessarily new, but they're revolutionary in terms of how golf adapts them and uses them to create huge impact. To know up front, like, hey, here's the champion child from the hospital, and here's their video story. This is who you're impacting. Or the hospital needs a new CT machine. Well, those are $2.1 million. Like, that just doesn't happen magically without this group of people. And if you really dig into like who the golfer is, they're looking to solve problems. So if you can identify the problem, get it in front of them, and have their peers ask, they're going to support, right? They're the ones that are going to like say, hey, kids need a jacket, right? Well, here's the jacket off my back. And I think golfers are in that sort of category in general. I'm generalizing big time, but they do like to solve problems. And if they don't know about it, it's just a golf event. So I see golf status, I see the technology that's available to really focus back on the goals of why are we doing this golf tournament. So that's what I love about the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about all of the work that goes into these things, and how it sometimes you're so focused on the logistics of planning and coordinating that you forget even to have the real crucial conversations with a sponsor or with a major participant, or even to your point, why are we even here, and what what impacts are we making by being here, both before the event and during the event and after the event, and just connecting with those donors. I think it's huge. We see that all the time in organizations large and small where, you know, you do have to get those planning logistics done. So if you can kind of streamline all that and focus on the key things, you're better positioned for success. We didn't talk much today at all about virtual and hybrid events. I know some of the folks planning Children's Miracle Network events have gone to virtual and hybrid formats amid the pandemic. We've seen a lot of it with folks that we work with just across the board. Maybe Logan, you can speak to, you know, virtual and hybrid and what technology has done there and how that's kind of impacting golf fundraising.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get into that, I did want to kind of just put a bow on that last point, how effective the technology can be at taking care of those back-end logistics. I had a really great story with one of my partners where, because they were using the golf status technology to have that taken care of, they were actually able to be out on the first tee box. It was a tee timed event, and actually talking with the golfers in the event, telling them about the nonprofit's mission, what their latest initiatives are. So they knew why they were there, who they were supporting, and they absolutely loved being able to do that. So it really just helps you better connect with your supporters, which is kind of what you're there for. But in terms of the hybrid and the virtual events, those were, I kind of touched on it early in the session, obviously a big draw for nonprofits that found themselves in areas where they did have really strict restrictions on gatherings. So, you know, the virtual events was really popular. Essentially, a nonprofit would identify a time frame that they would like to have the event held on, and golfers would sign up to support the event, to play in it, and they would just go out on, let's say the event took place from Sunday at the start of a week and ended on the Saturday at the end of the week. They would just identify the day in that time frame. They would go out and play, and through the technology, they were able to live score and have all those scores pulled back into one overall leaderboard that was displayed on the event website. And so from viewing it through the lens of just a leaderboard, it looked like a typical golf event where everyone was playing at the same time, when in reality it was all spread out, so it was safe, socially distanced, and the leaderboard was really the thing that just kept everyone connected. And also we allow spectators as well as participants to place additional donations through that page as well. So it was a really cool way to still safely host an effective fundraising event. And then the hybrid option was kind of just the best of both worlds. And that's actually the format I kind of see maybe standing the test of time, as it allows you to say, okay, I want to have my big in-person event day on Friday, but on the days Monday through Thursday leading up to that Friday, I want to give people who can't come on Friday the option to participate virtually. They can still go out, play around, still be recognized on that same leaderboard that everyone who is participating on Friday is identified on. So it gives them that option to still play. And I think a lot of events going forward can use that, kind of test the waters to see if they have enough interest to expand their event. So it started last year as a way to safely host the event, but I think that could be the use for the hybrid event going forward.
Logan,
Yeah.
one thing, look, I'll just kind of add to that just as an example, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, like, through the pandemic, the silver lining being it caused us to think about things differently. And these aren't just things that these are going to live long beyond, you know, once we're kind of finally through everything with the pandemic. But, you know, we've got a hospital that is looking at a multi-course event and had not even thought about something like that, you know, prior to, and this is not in response to COVID. This is just now, because the technology exists and the opportunity is so great, it gives them an opportunity to really expand their footprint and that community that they're looking to build. So it's just really neat to see that, kind of go back to the role that technology plays, but how it's also now creating new ideas of how we run these events that are really in some ways meeting the consumers where they're at. You're not always having to ask them to come to you. You now have the opportunity to go to where they are and still be part of this event. So I'm just excited to kind of see where that continues to grow. I think that's going to be a trend we're going to see for a long time coming.
Yeah, I think at the hospital level, one of the trends that we see, just to add to your point, Chad, you know, it can be a little scary to decide if you want to jump from a one-day event to a two-day event. Can we support the overhead? Does it make sense? Will we have enough people? You know, all of those questions and those hybrid formats and those different opportunities to engage folks kind of on their own time provide opportunities to test the waters and determine exactly when to make that leap and when to expand or broaden or add another course or add a third course or a fourth course and do a multi-course event that's broader in scope. So it's exciting to have that information and be able to make those informed decisions. We've already kind of jumped into the future, but you know, we've talked a lot about how CMN has innovated and turned focus to golf and what that's looked like in the data collection and the opportunities and the excitement, but what's next? What's the outlook for golf events and golf fundraisers? Hopefully someday when we're post-pandemic, hopefully someday very soon, and then even beyond that.
I think one of the things, I think now because golf did become a thing you could go do, and it really, more people who maybe had never previously participated in the sport have been exposed to it, participated, found a love for it. So I just think there's now an opportunity to potentially even reaching into new demographics that weren't previously participating in this sport. And so I think that's something to be mindful of and not just think about the way we maybe traditionally think about golf fundraising and the demographic that it's going to reach and stuff like that. But, you know, one thing even we're exploring now is, as Ben mentioned earlier, we've been very successful with college age students and doing fundraising and stuff, and they've gotten involved in the sport. And so how do we take a community that we're already engaged with and just engage with them in a new way? So I think just kind of that expansion into some new communities, people that have been participating in the sport, it's at one of its highest levels ever popularity wise, and just really beginning to leverage that and see where those new opportunities are is something that we're really looking at and exploring kind of in the post-pandemic world.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody have any closing thoughts or any additional feedback or commentary or anything else?
I think just the last thing and just to try to, you know, tie up some loose ends on a lot of things that were said is just start with your golf tournament. I mean, that is such a great place, but really focusing on, you know, I think what we tend to do is put a timestamp on, well, our golf event's happening on this day, and really think about it as part of that larger strategy of what you're trying to do with those. You know, it's a part of their journey, and that journey doesn't have to stop on that day. And so I think just really continuing to explore, you know, where are the spaces that we can really take our golf fundraising, and what does the technology now allow us to do that maybe it didn't allow us to do? Technology is really helping things become more efficient, and those things that Ben really touched on. And so I think just you got to kind of break the mold of what we've always thought about with golf fundraising, and that it's this big heavy lift, it's time consuming, it's expensive. There are significant barriers there, but I think the technology has really caught up to a point that a lot of those barriers have been significantly reduced. And I think you can think about golf in a much bigger way than maybe what you might have previously thought about it before.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you all and appreciate your time and thoughts on this panel and all the incredible work that you're doing to help and serve kids. And yeah, appreciate your insights and your thoughts on golf fundraising in general. And yeah, I think Logan has a couple more slides, just additional resources that folks can you know, can engage with if they'd like more information. But yeah, we appreciate you all.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, we're just here to help at Golf Status. So if you're a large national organization that is, you know, thinking about leveraging golf in a similar way to what Children's Miracle Network Hospitals has done, or if you're a nonprofit wanting to, you know, revamp your golf event, or are considering a golf fundraiser for the first time, or you're just a passionate golfer who wants to support an organization, you know, get in touch with us. through our Golf for Good program, we can get you set up with this great technology for no upfront cost. And I said it earlier, but you really do not need to know about golf to hold a successful golf fundraiser. You can lean on us for any of that golf knowledge you're lacking, as well as for all of your technology needs that can, like Chad said, make it much less daunting undertaking and make it very realistic for you to hold a very successful event. And we also have a lot of really great free resources on our website. Our marketing team does an excellent job of continuously updating, including our blog. We have some downloadable guides as well as some white papers and case studies, just a lot of great information about golf and golf fundraising in general. And like I mentioned, our Golf for Good program, really no matter who you are, this program can benefit you. If you are a nonprofit or you're raising funds on behalf of a nonprofit, we can get you that no cost access to the Golf Status platform. So with that, we are going to take some questions now. Here is my contact information, but I am going to pass it back to Yvonne. But want to quickly thank Ben, Kite, Chad, Katie, as well as Yvonne and Savannah in the background for everything. But yes, we'll pass it back to Yvonne to take some questions.
Thank you so much. I was thinking I might have to stop you because we have so many questions. And I think our audience, we have a lot of smaller nonprofits and we have a lot of people looking for really practical steps in the how-to. And so I'm going to try to get some of those questions in. For instance, Lauren says, I would love some specific ways to reach new people outside of our organization and publicize our golf events. And I'm going to kind of combine that with what Paula's saying. Paula said, how can a small grassroots community organization with no brand recognition, no celebrity spokesperson tap into golf as a fundraising opportunity? What are the costs involved? So if you could, I know that's a lot, but we'd love to, tackle those. How does the little guy get involved, and how do you even put these on?
Yeah, I'll kind of start. It's really easy to get involved. Like I said, no matter the size of your organization, we can set you up with these tools. These technology really benefits organizations of all sizes, from your little small groups of people, civic organizations, all the way up to large national organizations. So like I mentioned, through the Golf for Good program, there's no upfront cost to access the platform. We can get you set up with that event registration website. That's that one-stop shop for everything involved with the golf event, to the back-end software that takes away or kind of handles those logistics for you, so you can focus on what's really important, especially on the day of the event, and gets you all that information to continuously steward those donors throughout the process. Because like Chad had mentioned, that's just the beginning of their journey. So no matter the size of your organization, the size of the community you're in, this technology will be a really, really good fit for you. Was there anything I missed in that question, Yvonne?
It's really how to get started. So if you're saying that you have a lot of resources where people can go and figure that out, that's helpful. I think some people haven't had one at all and are just wondering, wow, we're not the Children's Miracle Network. Are we going to be able to do this?
Yeah, I think one thing to consider too is just kind of starting with your network and starting with the conversation. Like, who do we, it's interesting how often maybe you go to your board and find out that everyone's spouse is an avid golfer. And then you've got sort of a baseline to get started, and then they start to reach out to their networks, and then it starts to easily compound. So I would kind of start with anybody I knew with those types of connections to golf. Like I said, you don't, like Logan has said a couple of times, you don't necessarily have to have that, but it's helpful if you do. One of the action steps that we like to recommend is going to your board and asking them to tap 5 specific people that they know could get involved with this type of an event, and then bringing them together to kind of continue the conversation. The simple logistics of picking a date and a time and having a conversation with the golf course are certainly just sort of event prep type of things. But if you can start a conversation with folks who might already have ties and fingers into that network, it can compound pretty quickly.
Okay,
I have to say too, just Ben kind of touched on this earlier, and one thing that's beautiful about golf fundraising. It's scalable. You can scale it up, you can scale it down. It works at all levels. And so a few things just to add on what Katie said, as far as just networking within, your own, whether it's your board or other supporters that you have, starting there. I think if you're very clear about the objectives you're trying to reach, you want to get beyond, we just want to host a golf event. Everybody wants to host a golf event, but you really got to think bigger than that. And really paint that picture of, hey, we want to engage with 100 new supporters, and we feel like a golf event could really help us get there. And we're trying to move the needle this much, and we feel like the investment of a golf tournament is worth the return that we'll see on that. And I'd also encourage you, don't think too small. I think a lot of organizations that might be smaller, I've worked for smaller nonprofits, so I've been in those shoes. I think we tend to kind of think on the size that we perceive ourselves to be, but you can do really big things. I think you just have to be very organized. You've got to really research, what the potential of it is, and set big, audacious goals for it. You may not get there in year one, but kind of set that vision out there and rally people around that vision. I think if you start thinking small, you'll kind of find out that becomes your ceiling, and you don't really get past that. So don't be afraid to think big, even if you are a smaller organization.
Thanks. And Quinn and Rebecca have a similar question about just golf clubs. So Rebecca says, my small nonprofit has been having a golf tournament for the past 5 years. Our local golf club has been more unwilling to do it this year because golf has picked up so much during the pandemic. Quinn also says, how would you recommend getting in with a private golf course? What do you guys say to that?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to it. It is a busy year, so you can imagine, like, we have plans to activate golf courses, and they're coming back to us like, hey, the golf course is full. So I think that's really a relationship. You've got to work on that relationship with that head pro or the director of golf to say, look, this really is a big deal for us. You can't drop us from the calendar because we can't. We're going to lose momentum, and we've already put in the time and the effort. We want to be with you. We don't really want to be anywhere else. You know us. I think you just have to make a case that they need to stick with you, because golf over the years, like, golf exploded in the 90s, and it was obnoxious. Like, I couldn't get a tee time on the weekends, and I found myself playing like on a Thursday, lying about work, just so I could get on the golf course, because Tiger Woods absolutely exploded golf. And then, 5 years later, the golf courses are saying, please come back, where have you gone? And so it does that. It's cyclical. And I hope golf sustains this boom for a long time. I think the reality is that, as other sports come back, that people are going to say, okay, sweet, like, I can go back to what I was doing. And so we'll see a sustained, from this boom. But in terms of getting involved with a private club, it's very simple. You just need to set up a meeting and present your cause and let them know, because every private club has a committee that meets and discusses how they're going to use the assets that the club has. And that committee will give you a Monday when the golf course is closed. If that's the case, the majority close on Mondays. But they'll give you the golf course on a Monday. Now, you still got to pay food and beverage. You still got to pay for cards, green fees, 4 caddies, however they're set up. But that's just as simple as them looking at the calendar and saying, well, could you do your golf tournament here? And then you're in. And then from that point, treat that private club relationship the best you can, because they have multiple people that can say no. So you have the head pro who can say no, but you also have the committee that can say no to those events too going forward. So once you do get in with a private club, it's usually good, and it's usually a beneficial thing to put those, can you introduce me to somebody at the club that I can then put over my tournament committee and give them an assignment, and start to, weave a private club into your event and start to grow it from there. But those are some of my thoughts.
I have a couple of small practical tips. Just maybe asking the question, is there a day or a month that would work better? So just, and Ben, you kind of mentioned it, just reframing the date on which the event is happening, that might provide an option there for the facility. Also, one thing that we find is that a lot of, especially first or second year events, they realize that someone connected to their organization is a member at a private club, and then they become kind of a shoe into that relationship, and then they sort of take ownership of really facilitating that. So maybe ask around and see if someone is connected in that way. And Chad, I think I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to make two other points. One, it can actually sometimes be easier to get into a private club because their revenues are set, and so you're not taking revenue away from them closing down for a half day or however long. The other thing too is in marketing that event, there's a lot of prestige often that comes with private clubs because they're not accessible. So I think private clubs are a really good place to be looking. I think we often sometimes just eliminate them. We think, well, that's the big country club down the road, we'll never get in there. But what you'll often find is if you can find that way in the door, you'll often find that those sometimes can be even easier to work with if you have the right people that can connect you there.
Wow, thanks so much. So Pat wants to know, what do you say to sponsors or donors that say golf tournaments cost too much to hold and they want more of their dollars to go to the charity?
Great question. Yes, golf tournaments can be expensive to run, but I also look at it as opportunity lost. And so I think really, again, kind of goes back to really clearly stating, what it is that you're trying to achieve through this event, beyond just the fundraising numbers, but really talking to the outcomes that those numbers are going to impact, and really focusing on that charitable message with those sponsors and stuff. And so the way I've always looked at sponsors is I always try to remove myself from being a line item on their budget and look more at how can we weave our mission into the fabric of that organization. I think if you do that and you kind of tap into more of the emotional side of that organization, you have a higher chance of them wanting to support you because it's less about just a line item budget decision and do we or don't we do this and stuff. So I think that's just really important in building that relationship with them, because you'll hear that all the time. And I think the other thing too, we do this a lot. We have a lot of partners that we call them underwriting partners. We really demonstrate how their dollar can help us raise $10 or whatever that number is. And so just finding those creative ways to really demonstrate the impact that their money is having in supporting that event.
The other thing I would add there too, at the risk of being sales pitchy, one of the things that Golf Status can do is take out a lot of the labor and legwork involved and really eliminate those as expenses that we don't always think about. The time that your team has to spend in planning logistical components of an event like this, when that's eliminated, you can really refocus. So that's one way we've seen our clients, go to their donors, go to their sponsors and say, hey, we've adopted this new technology. We're doing it through a program designed specifically for nonprofits, so it's no cost to us. And it's allowing us to do more with less, which is great because we can refocus on other things that bring more and more dollars in the door.
That's good to hear. So inclusivity. Hope says our library golf tournament doesn't attract many women. I think this is a market we are missing. Some say women don't come out and golf on weekends, but I think that's an outdated notion. What are your ideas for engaging more women golfers?
Oh,
Yeah,
gee. I think
I
I'm
can answer
this one. Go ahead, Ben.
You want me to answer? So this is an exciting time for golf for women because I think they're starting to understand that it's not a private club. It's not just old dudes. So what I love is that if you can create a safe place for them to meet and golf, and you may have to set up a networking event where they get together and they golf kind of on their terms, like maybe they only want to play 9 holes, but you start there and then you weave them into your golf tournament. Because I think I played high school and college golf with women because there wasn't a women's golf team, and those are some of the best experiences that I've ever had, because They not only were they great company, but they were really good players. And I feel like a day on the golf course with women is a totally different experience for me personally. I'm just talking from my own personal experience. And I feel like sometimes we create this barrier that somehow they're not invited, or you don't hit it as far, or you want to play from the, whatever those preconceived notions are. I think you're right in that we're missing an opportunity to include this group, but at the same time, we got to make room for them. So, every group's going to have, we're going to have female teams. We're going to weave the women into the teams. You got to find somebody that plays golf to be on your team, because we want to build up this. We want to make it more diverse and inclusive. So, I think by being upfront with your tournament committee and those who are involved, saying, hey, we need more women to participate in this event. But there's other ways that you could do it to get a group started. And maybe you might, through your research, just talking with them and say, hey, we don't play with those guys. Let us do our own event. And you could simply set up a new tournament through Golf Status, where they could play on their golf course and do their fundraiser. But I say don't give up, and don't believe in all of the, I don't know, some of the preconceived notions that are around golf. I think it's a new day, and I think it's also a great opportunity to really bring them into your cause, because we know how incredible women donors are through their donor cycle. So I wouldn't give up on that group, and create room for them. Pick a few groups that really well, and just say, hey, you guys got to bust this up. I know it's boys club, but you got to break it up, and you got to make this better, because we need a better reference of, who our donor database is. Bring them in.
Yeah, I like what you said, Ben, about the sport really is moving in that direction, and it really is becoming substantially more inclusive. Clubs are thinking at the club level about how they can be more inclusive and inviting to women. And the LPGA is doing some incredible things, and there's tons of different things happening at the top level, but also on the grassroots level. I like what you said also about maybe doing a smaller event that's specifically targeted at women. We've seen organizations do like couples events that are inherently involving both men and women. And so thematically, those events can be designed. We've also seen folks combine a gala component and a couples event where that kind of comes together. So there's a number of different ways to kind of loop those folks in. The other thing, and this is a small but very important thing, even the language around golf is shifting. It used to be a 4-man scramble, and it's now a 4-person scramble. So, on our end, in our technology, and as thought leaders, all of us kind of in this panel are also trying to change even the lexicon and the way that the sport is discussed in that regard. So yes, it's shifting, and I'm hopeful and heartened by the way that it's shifting for sure.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Ben.
My favorite thing is to have a good women golfer on my team, because they have a distance advantage. They play from a forward tee, and we usually use their drive. So, and they're not wild hitters like the guys. So they're usually in the fairway, and we usually win. So if somebody needs to talk to me about adding a good woman golfer to their group, I'd be the first person to talk to them about it. So, but yeah, I'm a father of 4 daughters, and I've done everything to break the barriers on the golf course, so they know that they're invited, they're included, and we want them there, because it's a better place with women on the golf course.
Thank you so much. So unfortunately, we're out of time, but I want to thank Logan, Katie, Ben, Chad, and Kyton. What we're going to do is we always send an email with a follow-up this recording, and we'll ask Golf Status if they don't mind to answer some of the questions that we curated during the conversation, and hopefully we can get those to you in the next 2 business days. But with that, I just want to thank all of our panelists and thank everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.